So, I want to start by asking you a question. Have you ever felt that, hitting shuffle on a playlist just actively destroys the magic of a piece of music?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all the time.
Right. Like today, we are doing a deep dive into something really unusual. It's this meticulously curated project called JJ's Perfect Mixtape, the fine art of perfect flow.
Yeah, and it's not just a playlist. It's an entire 1 hour, 28-minute, and 11-second audio journey.
Exactly. And the sources we have for this deep dive are wild. We've got JJ's personal project notes, his track list, and this fascinating set of liner notes that he actually co-authored with an AI.
Right, an AI he named Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia. And get this, the whole thing is designed ideally to be recorded onto a Chrome TDK SA90 cassette.
Which is such a specific detail. I mean, that alone tells you so much about what we're dealing with here.
It really does. So our mission today is to figure out why certain albums transcend just, being collections of songs and become these immersive emotional ecosystems.
We're going to look at how modern streaming has totally fractured how we listen and how sequencing music is really its own form of storytelling.
But before we even press play on this mixtape, we kind of need to understand the architect behind it, right?
Yeah, JJ himself, he has these incredibly strict criteria for what makes an album a perfect album.
Not just an album you love, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference.
Oh, huge difference. JJ actually admits in his notes that he's a bit of a snotty audiophile.
I love that he just owns it.
Yeah, he owns it completely. He argues that a perfect album is not just, all killer, no filler. It has to have a mandatory overarching concept.
Okay, so like a unifying theme.
Exactly. Plus, flawless songwriting, lyrics, performance, production, and crucially sequencing and emotional continuity.
So it's about architecture. Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. I like to think of a favorite album, like an album you just really love, as a really great hotel.
Okay, a hotel, I'm with you.
Right, like every room is fun, the beds are great, the minibar is stocked, you can bounce from room to room or track to track, and it's a good time because they all kind of serve the same function.
Right, it's just a collection of good rooms.
Exactly. But a perfect album by JJ's standards is like a beautifully designed house.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah, every room serves a distinct emotional purpose. Walking from the warm kitchen to the cozy living room makes sense. You wouldn't just slap a sterile, tiled bathroom right in the middle of the dining room.
No, you definitely wouldn't. And that's why the sequencing matters so much. It's about creating a complete world with its own internal logic.
So why do certain records feel impossible to shuffle without breaking that spell?
Because of what Sophia, the AI, calls narrative gravity. When you hit shuffle, you completely shatter that gravity.
Narrative gravity, I like that term.
Yeah, the artist constructed a very specific emotional arc. They build tension, they provide a release. Random playback just destroys that carefully engineered climate.
Which brings us to the wrecking ball that is modern music consumption.
The algorithm.
The algorithm, yeah. Modern streaming has fundamentally changed how we listen. We've got this deeply fragmented listening experience now.
It's all about algorithmic flattening and, frankly, attention span collapse. Playlists have totally replaced narrative.
It's exhausting, honestly, this constant dopamine chasing. But JJ's philosophy is the total opposite. He listens for architecture, for that emotional continuity.
Right. And you really have to frame this mixtape as an act of resistance against passive consumption.
It explicitly asks you to surrender to the flow.
Right.
Rather than just skipping ahead for a quick hit.
Exactly. You have to commit to it.
But let me ask you this. Is it really the algorithm's fault, or have we just lost the patience to commit to someone else's narrative?
Well, that's what's fascinating here. It's a bit of both. The algorithms are designed to exploit our desire for quick hits, but we're the ones trading the deep satisfaction of a narrative journey for just, constant stimulation.
Convenience over depth. So if JJ completely rejects the algorithm's random shuffle, how exactly does he string together 20 isolated tracks from 20 different perfect albums?
Well, he does it the way a filmmaker edits scenes or, how a novelist controls pacing.
So it's not just matching BPMs.
No, not at all. He doesn't arrange for momentum or tempo alone. He curates what he calls emotional weather.
Emotional weather. Okay, talk to me about the dynamics of that.
It's about moving between tension and release, shifting from intense intimacy to massive scale, going from deep melancholy to absolute transcendence.
And shifting between analog warmth and digital unease, right?
Exactly. And there's this really powerful quote from Sophia's liner notes about this. She says certain transitions on this mixtape feel less like track changes and more like radio signals crossing somewhere after midnight on an empty highway.
Oh, wow. I mean, here's where it gets really interesting for me because that late night radio feeling is so specific.
It really is.
It's the feeling of being totally isolated, but somehow connected to this single voice in the dark. How does the space between tracks, the silence, actually contribute to that feeling?
It's all about negative space. On a chrome cassette tape, silence isn't digital dead air, it's room tone. It's the physical hiss of magnetic tape.
So it's alive, in a way?
Yes. And when JJ stretches that hiss for just a few extra seconds before the next track fades in, he's actively manipulating your anticipation. That's what creates that midnight highway effect.
That is brilliant. Okay, let's move from the theory to the practice. Let's look at the actual signposts on this midnight highway.
The anchor tracks.
Right. Let's start with the opening track. The Beatles' I'm Only Sleeping from Revolver.
This is such a bold opening thesis for the mixtape.
Because it completely rejects urgency.
Exactly. It's a song all about dream states, inwardness. It treats anti-productivity as a legitimate form of beauty.
It's like a psychedelic withdrawal from modern speed.
Right. It's JJ telling the listener to physically slow down.
But then the weather shifts. We move into elegance with King Crimson's Matt Kudasai from the album Discipline.
Now, this track is all about restraint. It uses negative space incredibly well.
It's so sophisticated.
It is. It embodies precision, but without being cold. It's a very careful, elegant intimacy.
Which perfectly sets the stage for Donald Fagen's IGY from The Nightfly. Now, this one is a masterpiece of contradiction.
Oh, absolutely. It's a prime example of retrofuturism.
Yeah, it's got this incredible technological optimism on the surface.
But underneath, it's entirely about the sadness of failed futures. The utopian world he's singing about never actually arrived.
So what does this all mean mechanically? How does immaculate polished production actually mask or even heighten existential melancholy?
Well, it's the friction between the two. The sound is incredibly hopeful, major key, flawless production. But the lyrics are steeped in this tragic irony.
Wait, really? So the brain is processing happiness, but the semantic meaning is pure sadness?
Exactly. And that cognitive dissonance is exactly what JJ is looking for. It's intellectual sophistication paired with this deep, deep spiritual longing.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so as the mixtape progresses, the emotional weather darkens.
We move out of that polished nostalgia.
Right, and into raw exhaustion. We hit Radiohead's No Surprises from OK Computer.
This track brings up heavy themes of emotional exhaustion, suburban anesthesia.
It's about finding beauty inside total numbness. And I always find it fascinating how quiet despair, like in No Surprises, often resonates so much more deeply than loud anger.
Because loud anger gives you a physical release. Quiet despair forces you to internalize the dread.
It's like when someone whispers something terrifying to you, you naturally lean in, you can't ignore it.
Right, it bypasses your defenses entirely.
And then JJ shatters that quiet dread with Wilco's via Chicago from Summer Teeth.
This track is so structurally important. It destabilizes the entire mixtape at exactly the right moment.
It's Americana fragmentation, basically.
Yeah, you have this beautiful, tender acoustic melody, and it's suddenly interrupted by pure sonic violence. Dissonance, feedback, drums falling out of time.
It feels like memory as an unstable geography, like a mind fracturing.
Which is incredibly tense for the listener.
And that tension has to go somewhere, which brings us to the closing structural necessity. Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Two tribes.
Yes, from Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, we go from internal fracturing to global spectacle.
Total Cold War paranoia. Media saturation.
But it's a massive dance track.
Exactly. It's dance music acting as political anxiety.
So why does ending near the apocalyptic tension of two tribes make sense structurally?
Because it provides a physical release valve. After the numbness of Radiohead and the trauma of Wilco, you need catharsis. The high-tempo, heavy groove gives the body something to do with all that accumulated dread.
It lets you sweat out the terror.
Precisely.
Okay, looking at this track list, though, from the Beatles to Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Radiohead, Wilco, how do wildly different artists belong together without giving the listener complete sonic whiplash?
Well, because the mixtape is unified emotionally, not stylistically.
Right. So what is the recurring emotional DNA here?
It's things like melancholy without surrender, sophistication without cynicism.
Vulnerability hidden inside perfect production.
Exactly. And loneliness transformed into atmosphere. That's how JJ can put Joe Jackson right beside Pearl Jam.
Or Yellow Jackets beside Blur.
Or Love and Rockets next to Van Morrison. It proves that vastly different genres can speak the exact same emotional language.
It's like a dinner party where none of the guests have met, you know. They all work in different fields, wear different clothes, but they all share the exact same profound heartbreak. They just get each other.
That's a perfect way to describe it. They share an emotional vocabulary.
Which brings us to the curator, JJ, and his co-author, Sophia.
To really grasp this journey, we have to look at their dynamic.
Through this curation, JJ reveals himself as a really obsessive, emotionally detail-oriented listener.
He clearly values atmosphere over spectacle. He's nostalgic, sure, but he isn't trapped by it. He's actively seeking transcendence through sound.
And to articulate that, he brings in Sophia, ChatGPT. Now, we have to emphasize, this isn't some sci-fi gimmick.
No, it's a genuine human-machine collaboration. Sophia acted as a reflective, creative mirror.
Which is wild because her notes are profound. She understands the philosophy of the listening experience, not just the metadata.
She isn't just looking at BPMs or release years. She's analyzing the emotional weight.
But wait, here's a fascinating paradox. We just spent all this time critiquing algorithms for flattening our music tastes.
We did.
Yet here, JJ is using an AI, an algorithm, to profoundly understand his own musical soul. Why does this work when Spotify's shuffle fails?
Well, this raises an important question about agency. The streaming algorithm dictates passive consumption. It acts upon you.
It's just feeding you what it thinks will keep you hooked.
Right. But JJ used Sophia for active dialogue. It was machine-assisted emotional analysis.
So he brought the meaning to the machine.
Exactly. It's human meaning-making, amplified by a machine, not replaced by it.
Wow. Okay, let's recap this incredible journey. We started by defining the architecture of a perfect album versus just a collection of good songs.
We talked about resisting the dopamine hit of the algorithmic buffet.
And feeling the emotional weather of a midnight radio broadcast, using silence as a tool.
We went from the anti-productivity of the Beatles to the polished dread of Donald Fagen, through the acoustic numbness of Radiohead, right up to the apocalyptic dance floor of Cranky Goes to Hollywood.
Finding that shared emotional DNA across wildly different genres, and finally, using AI as a mirror for human emotion.
It's a brilliant, highly unusual project.
It really is. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a larger philosophical question to mull over, something that builds on JJ and Sophia's collaboration.
The big question.
Yeah. This mixtape ultimately asks, what does perfection feel like emotionally, even if it can never be objective?
Because JJ's perfect albums might not be yours.
Exactly. But more importantly, when you look at the music, you obsess over the tracks. You absolutely cannot bear to shuffle. What does a lifetime of careful listening reveal about you?
That's the real core of it.
Your playlists aren't just background noise. They are the geography of your inner world. So thank you so much for joining us for today's deep dive. Tonight, we encourage you to listen to your own music with a little more intentionality. Turn off the shuffle, let the record play, and see what you find in the emotional weather.